That's funny, until you realize it would be kind of horrifying to imagine your body contouring into the shape of that vacuum cleaner. Cold open for this one featured some different music, which we'll play into things later, and the chef giving some queen a dessert of tomato gelatin, which, yeah, even as someone who generally likes tomatoes, that's a bit much for me. And speaking of overdoing things, the episode proper opened with almost a full 2-minute recap of the end of the 28th episode. Like, there was absolutely no new content, like say a narration or something. They just played the very end of the episode, which I kind of get, as it would have been a couple weeks when those episodes originally aired, but still, it feels a little lazy and wasteful when they don't even condense it down or anything. Anyway, the episode proper once again opened at the witch's nursery, as it was lunchtime with everyone enjoying some cream stews, well, except for Hana. Oh great, she discovered that stupid carnivore diet on TikTok, didn't she? Look, Hana, you do realize that the Liver King is probably going to jail, right? Actually, in kind of a clever bit of foreshadowing, at least for those who pay way too much attention to little details, like me, Hana tossing all of her vegetables was unusual, as she did at least eat stuff like broccoli. Later, the Ojamajo also noticed something was off when Hana turned down their carrot cake just because it had small slivers of carrot in it. Again, I don't actually think this dessert is all that effective of getting kids to eat their veggies, but still, the fact that she did turn it down after enjoying it previously was very telling. Things really came to a head when, as a part of their activities, the kids were put into go-karts, and no, it's not because the go-karts are part of a school's curriculum. I mean, I would have killed to have those sorts of things back in my day, but more the fact that she just couldn't participate for some reason. I told you, you should have stuck with the previous Mario Kart rather than needlessly upgrade to the Switch 2. Actually, as it turned out, the go-karts were pushed by magic, and Hana's MP reserves were already running on fumes due to her not eating her veggies, which, yeah, okay, this is kind of an obtuse way of telling kids to clean their plates, but does make sense in the sense that stuff like mana would require proper nutrition to maintain. Thus, they took her to Maja Heart to figure out why she suddenly wasn't eating properly. Hey, don't blame it on curses for celery being factually the most disgusting food on the planet. Okay, but seriously, let's really consider what the previous queen has done here. So, because she viewed Hana as a possible threat, she inflicted the infant with a curse that made her a picky eater. Like, don't get me wrong, starving a child is absolutely horrible, but that is still like petty as all hell when you say it out loud. Like, even Hazuki pointed out how ridiculous that was. Regardless, that and Masha Miller's shadow clone were very concerning. Thus, the Ojamajo paid the current queen a visit, who was likely already catching on to her predecessor's wrongdoings. She had figured the best way to counteract the curse would be by, ironically enough, enlisting the help of the previous queen's personal chef, who was the lady in the cold opener, and yeah, that was the PQ before she just went full evil Karen demon mode. Problem is, it was stolen by some thieves, led by some dude who's even more petty than the previous queen. But yeah, I guess Maja Roxanne was a bit of a vegan chef, so her recipes worked well to counteract her queen and in turn Hana's picky eating habits. Thus, they went to a restaurant where she wasn't actually cooking anymore, instead managing it. Part of it was likely due to her age, but I think they also implied that she didn't take her queen turning into an evil demon lord all that well either. And through just some good visual storytelling, we could already tell that she was torn apart by her queen tearing a page from her cookbook that was likely the tomato gelatin from the cold opener, which for whatever reason was her favorite dessert, which again, I don't think I would ever order something like that even if they tried to play it up. Still, she had plenty of other recipes in her book that could help. Lady, you do realize that's a direct order from your queen. I don't think you can just easily refuse it. Like, I get that it's her last connection to the previous queen and all that, but couldn't you make, like, magical copies or something, especially when a toddler's livelihood is at stake? But then, I guess it wouldn't justify this overly dramatic lighting, which legit is kind of hurting my eyes to watch. Anyway, she challenged the Ojamajo to try and win her cookbook in a contest against her head chef.
これは私の直弟子、魔女パーラーと申します。
Let me guess, you're really into butter on everything, as well as certain other things we probably shouldn't bring up on this website. With that, they decided to hold a Great British, witch baking show. There was no specific theme, just whatever they felt would satisfy Majo Roxanne the most, who was the judge. For the Ojamajo, Moko figured that they could make some music-themed cakes, which we'll see in just a bit. But first, like many shonen cooking anime, they also had to establish how much more of a master chef their competition was.
魔女パーラーさんたら小麦粉の重さを測らないでほど。
一流シェフは計量器具など使わなくとも。
You're full of shit.
Like, seriously, I don't care how magical this lady is. You don't just eyeball most of your measurements when it comes to baking, as that stuff can vary a lot. Call me pedantic, but this was probably my least favorite part of the episode, which on the one hand means that overall, I don't actually have much to complain about with this one. But still, it legit really annoys me when creators just make up stuff when they don't have to in regards to showing off how good someone is at an established occupation. Like if they wanted to show that Paul is a good chef, they should have actually done the exact opposite and show that she was very exact with her measurements.
And when I say weigh out the ingredients, it does literally mean weigh out to the final gram.
I mean, just because I compare her to Dean doesn't mean she has to be as sloppy as her.
お前たちなどに渡すものか。
And also hopefully not to have some other controversial traits. Also, while it is good that they showed that she did need a hand mixer to whip up some egg whites, they also probably should have told the animators to make sure that she didn't get any broken yolks in those whites. And it's not even as though they didn't do their research for this episode either.
どうして私のだけ膨らんでないの？あー、メレンゲ入れるの忘れた。
All I asked for is a little consistency. Anyway, while the competition was going on, Majo Roxanne revealed her Molison backstory that we already kind of went over, as it was pretty clear, but whatever, I guess they figured they should spell it out for the viewers, and I do like the sequence of the previous queen ripping out her favorite recipe, with the awesome visual of her hanging over her chef like the absolute demon that she had become. In the end, the Ojamajo and Paula both managed to finish their dishes, the latter making probably the most elaborate chestnut cake ever. Like, I'm pretty sure this is mostly a taste challenge, so she did have to go full British baking challenge with her cake castle, but whatever, it got full marks from Majo Roxanne, as chestnuts were her favorite treat, meaning that from the beginning, she did have a bit of an unfair advantage over the Ojamajo. Thus, the winner did seem to be clear, but the Ojamajo countered confections that were nowhere near as complex, but were still some very well done instrument cakes that, while not having any chestnuts in them, actually struck a stronger chord with Majo Roxanne due to it reminding her of the music box that played every time she served the queen, and of course what we heard in the cold opener. And yeah, it was a hell of a coincidence that all of their instruments matched up with the box, meaning that this result was also really damn lucky, but whatever, it was a nice sequence that shed light on Majo Roxanne and the PQ a little more. But yeah, of course, the Ojamajo won, again by a lot of luck, but also because they at least sparred to think outside the box and take a risk to try to appeal to their judge, and succeeded. Thus, the episode ended with them being declared the winners and awarded Majo Roxanne's cookbook. This was a pretty good little outing, though mostly for that conclusion. The first half of the episode was a little more there just for setup rather than the actual baking contest, which yeah was the main event of the episode, and I would have liked to see a little more, along with it being a little better thought out. Still, at least the lesson of the day was well told, and it did have some great visual storytelling that bumped it up a peg. It's actually pretty fortunate that the story of Majo Roxanne and the PQ was pretty straightforward, as the first half of this episode was a little more on the setup side of things, nothing too egregious other than that overly long recap, though that said, it was also kind of indicative of one of my only real issues with this episode. They explain things just a little too much. Like I said, there was some great visual storytelling here that I don't think needed to be explained even for a younger audience. Still, at least it didn't detract from the great story being told between the previous queen and her former chef. It really highlighted how even some of her less notable servants were affected by her destructive crash out, and how in spite of everything they still had attachments to this cycle who literally curses out babies. As a result, I did like the result of the cooking contest, even if the Ojamajo were a tad bit too lucky that all their instruments were in that one music box, but the idea of thinking outside of the box was clever, and did kind of hint at how Majo Roxanne has to kind of move on from the previous queen both for her own benefit and Hana's. Yeah, sure, I won't exactly call her or Paula great characters, but they at least told a good story. So overall, this was a pretty good episode that had a good lesson and fleshed out the previous queen nicely. And hey, at least at the very least, this lady didn't become an evil demon lord because she didn't get her cupcake. Thanks for watching, and if you don't want tomatoes in your dessert, well, just avoid them for one thing, and then go watch our videos. We've got something new coming out almost every day, and sometimes twice a day if we do shorts or something. Look forward to whatever comes next. Until then, though, fair for now, my friends, and, You think you can actually make a Sunday out of this?